everybody. Hello, good evening. I hope everybody had a good day. We will be reading today because it's a little late. I know it's later than I usually do. Significantly later than I usually do stream. Also, ignore the lights back here. We lost power earlier. And my little sister has LED lights up that like to change colors when we get back. Hello, Luke. Hello. You and Lily are egregiously early. I did turn sound alerts all the way down specifically because of this one. But hi, Grandma Willow. Hello, how are you? So I decided we were going to be doing another one of those Storytime streams that you guys really liked last time, except for, instead of doing a bunch of books, Luke, I am doing fantastic. Thank you very much. I hope you are doing just as well. But instead of reading multiple books like we did last time and constantly switching between titles, I decided that I am going to read a book that is very near and dear to my heart. We will be reading Martin the Warrior by Brian Jacques. It does not have any pictures in it, so I don't have to flip my camera around for you guys. I also will not have the book visible, but as you can tell, it has seen many years of wear and tear. The pages are yellowed. So you'll be able to see this one. And Luke, I am very excited you are here for this one. This series, so Martin the Warrior is a novel in the realm of another story called Redwall. If any of you guys are familiar with that, it is about a young mouse warrior becoming, the big strong warrior and defending the abbey that he lives in. So this, I believe, is the precursor about the warrior he idolizes, Martin, whom is also a mouse. So we will be reading this. I grew up watching the Redwall series on VHS tape. In my mom's house, yes, I know what a VHS is. My mom had a VHS player, and my older sister and I would fight over who got to put the VHS in. She always won. And we would sit there and watch, and there were scenes that absolutely terrified me and gave me nightmares as a child. Looking back, they probably weren't that scary. So I will be reading. I don't know how far we'll get into the book. I will see. I do have a bookmark. So if you guys do enjoy this book while I'm reading, I can set it aside and we can continue another day. Also, because if Rambo was here, she would ask, I do have water. I have a lot of water. This is, I believe, 64 ounces, something like that. So in between each chapter, if I get to a stopping point in the story, I will be taking a drink. Like such. Because staying hydrated is very important, especially when you talk as much as I do. So we will be getting into that. I don't believe I have any updates. Aside from, there may be some days where I have to, my work schedule is getting shifted around just a little bit. There are going to be some days where I get back an hour later. I start an hour later, which will be nice, but I also might get back an hour later than I usually do, so stream might start a little bit later, or I'll be able to just slip right into stream after coming home from work. Also, in case any of you guys weren't here last time, we do still have my rainbow dinosaur for all of my subscribers. We're putting all of their names onto this dinosaur in the color of your choice. I do believe I have my markers. I don't know where they are. If I cannot find them, I will write your name down and the color you like, and I will put it on the dinosaur and show you next stream to prove that I actually did it. So we still do have this guy. I also, because you guys may have seen, I finished Escape Academy in my stream on Monday. So I have looked into the DLC. There are... Thank you, Luke. It is a very cute dino. There are 2 DLC packs. I have both of them. I should have both of them. And then they are coming out with a second game. They did announce it this year, so I don't know if it is coming out this year or if they just announced it and it'll be coming out in the future. But we will have more Escape Academy content. I know Lily would be very excited. I know she absolutely loved that game. And BDOMs helped me greatly with the last puzzles on Monday. So again, thank you so much, BDOMs. Maybe one day we can come back and try to get some more of the achievements in the game, because apparently I only have 48% of the achievements. Some of them are also for multiplayer, which I would like to try out. I just have to find someone to play with. So, October, I think the next one is, okay. That'll be fun. That'll be a fun, you know, Halloween, we'll play Escape Academy. No, Halloween, we'll do Halloween stuff. But maybe for my birthday. My birthday is in November. So maybe for my birthday we'll play Escape Academy. But yeah, so there's a multiplayer function in Escape Academy 1. I don't know if they're going to be continuing that in the second game. It will be very fun if it was. Excuse me. I don't know how it works. I don't know if it's, you know, shared inventory, if there's inventory at all, if there's, you know, I don't know exactly how the multiplayer function will work. Maybe you guys could pop over tomorrow and convince Rambo to play it. Maybe. I don't even know if it's the same puzzles. It could be different puzzles. I got it wrong. I thought it was Escape. Unannounced. Okay. Well, I do also have Escape Simulator. I believe... Well, no. What other escape game do I have? I do have Escape Simulator. So I have Escape Simulator as well. So if you need a break from Escape Academy, if you don't want to jump right into the DLC just yet, we can do Escape Simulator, see how that works. I have that one I don't know anything about, so I would be going in completely blind. But yeah, you guys seem to like the escape games. I love playing them. So we'll see what we can do to keep the escape games going. I do also have I do still have the diamond painting. If we have, you know, a little bit of a low-key, chill kind of crafty day, I can do that. I have some other crafts lined up that I could do. We do still have... Jeez, I am yawning. We just still have our minifigures to paint. I did not paint these guys without you. This is where we started it all. On top of, you know, a bunch of other games that I could play that I have on my computer that I've kind of been stalling on playing and not playing because I don't have anybody to play either with or for or to. But now I have you guys, so we'll see about, maybe one day I'll put up a poll of all of the games that I have that I think my computer could handle. And we'll see which ones you guys want to see. Whew. I yawn because I talk too much without breathing. So, before you guys start yelling at me for being tired, Brian Jacques, Martin the Warrior. Book has definitely seen better days and a lot of love. Illustrated by Gary Chalk. This came out 1993. Alright, so this book actually has 3 books in it. It has book 1, The Prisoner and the Tyrant, book 2, Actors and Searchers, and Book 3, The Battle of Marshank. So we might get through Book 1 today. If not, we'll read part of it and go through Book 2 tomorrow. Not tomorrow, later. Got a PC recently so I can play Escape Sim and stuff soon once I get it set up. Lily's been at me to set it up. Aww. Well, that'll be exciting. Maybe you two could play together. Alright, so this is our one picture, is the map that is in the beginning of every good book. Every good book has a map in the beginning. Alright. If we are all snuggled up, everybody's comfy, in bed, in a chair, on the floor, on the ceiling, I don't care. Get comfy, get snacks. If it's time for you to go to bed, get snuggled up under blankets. And we shall begin. Amid the deep white winter snow, sleeps Mossflower until spring, while snug in cavern hole below, all Redwall's creatures sing. Old Autumn gave us plenty, our harvest did not fail. No plate or jug is empty, there's good October ale. 3 young creatures, the Otter twins, Bag and Run, accompanied by Grub, their mole friend, hauled a small beech log between them along the path to Redwall Abbey. The intrepid trio kept stopping to clear away the snowdrift building up in front of the log as they dragged it through the snow. Singing lustily, they pelted each other with snowballs, their breath rising in white plumes as they ran around the beech log. "Yow, you'm a dreadful villain! Baggo, let go, oi! Ha ha! I'll save you, Grub! Take that!" "Missed me! You couldn't hit the Abbey gate if you was stoodin' in front of it, Run." "Oh, couldn't I then? We'll have some of this, mate." The young otter flung the snowball. Bag ducked, unaware that 2 travelers were coming along the path from the north. They hurled snowballs wildly at each other. "Oof! Great seasons, go easy there!" One of the travelers, a large, sturdy hedgehog, had been struck by a snowball. He wiped the snow from his snout with the edge of his cloak. The 3 young ones stopped throwing and hung their heads sheepishly. Grub took it on himself to apologize. "Us'n's and terrible sorry, sir. Be you murdered?" The hedgehog traveling companion, a very pretty mouse maid, stifled laughter at the sight of the three delinquent snowballers. "Oh, I'm sure Bulltip will live. He's had worse injuries." Grinning, the big hedgehog nodded. "I have indeed, mates. Come on, I'll help you with your log. Where are you bound with it?" Bag curved his mittened paw as he pointed. "Just round that bend, sir, to Redwall Abbey. We live there." Bulltip nodded at his companion as he took the tow rope in his strong paws. "I told you we'd find the Abbey on this path. Right, you 3 terrors, sit up on the log and I'll give you a ride too. You too, Albrecia. Rest your footpaws." There was a little doubt the hedgehog was a mighty beast. Tossing the ropes across his shoulders, he trudged off through the snow, hauling the log and its passengers behind it with no effort. Redwall Abbey stood backed by the vastness of Mossflower Woods, its front facing the path and open flatlands to the west. Capped with snow, the beautiful building resembled a vast frosted cake. Walls, battlements, bell tower, and abbey fringed with icicles hanging over its red sandstone towers and turrets. Abbot Saxtus folded his paws into wide habit sleeves, gazing up at the main building. Behind him, old Simeon, the blind herbalist, leaned on a hawthorn stick, sniffing the cold air. "Looks beautiful, doesn't it, Saxtus?" Knowing his friend's uncanny knack of sensing every movement, the abbot nodded. "Remember what our old friend Abbot Bernard said before he passed on? No matter what the season, Redwall always looks marvelous." Simeon sniffed the air again and held up a paw. "Some beast is coming this way. 1, maybe 2, it's hard to tell." They stood out on the path by the open main gates. Saxtus watched until he saw the party approaching. "I might have known. It's Bag, Run, and Grub. They've brought company, 2 travelers." Simeon tapped his stick on the snow eagerly. Oh, good. We'll have some fresh tales in Cavern Hole tonight. Old Friar Cocklebur hurried along with his preparations for the midwinter mossflower feast, helped by his assistant Alder. Both mice worked furiously, putting the finishing touches to dishes as they called out orders to the Redwallers on kitchen duty. Brush, more honey on that pie if you want a good shiny crust. Pass those chopped nuts and green sap milk, please. Quick, pull those pasties from the oven before they're too brown. Durry Quill, will you stop loading hot root pepper into that soup? Oh, leave me be. Soup's gotta be out to be any good. Paws on hips, Cocklebur glared at the hedgehog. I wish you'd go back to your cellars and see the drinks with your Uncle Gabriel. Go on, be off with you. Durry popped a candy chestnut into his mouth and spoke around it. Drinks are all ready. Tober ale, elderberry wine, strawberry cordial, and fizzy dandelion cup note. To do in cellar. Old Uncle Gabe, he's taking a nap before feasting, resting his stomach. Alberisha and Bulltip had been shown around the abbey. They gaped and marveled at the great structure, expressing their admiration for it at every opportunity. Later, they had been shown to their rooms by a formal. Now rested, washed, and garbed in warm old green habits, they came down to the place called Cavern Hole to attend the feast. Alberisha smiled at the gallant young male mice who flocked about her, each one trying to outdo the other as they saw to every need of the pretty stranger in their midst. Sit here, Miss Alberisha, next to me. No, sit here, it's more comfortable. Here's a cushion. You must have traveled far, let me get you some food. Perhaps you'd like to try some elderberry wine. It'll take the chill off your long journey away, Miss Alberisha. Abbot Saxtus looked over the top of his spectacles, wagging a paw. So much help for one traveler. Alberisha, come and sit here with Bulltip and Simeon. Here, I'll push up a bit so you'll be next to me. Why shouldn't a venerable old abbot have the pleasure of a pretty mousemaid's company? Alberisha curtsied and smiled. Why not indeed, Father Abbot? Bulltip had a massive appetite. Scarcely had grace been said when he was munching away, sampling this and that, as he allowed old Gabe Quill to fill his tankard. Redwall October Ale, finest in mossflower. Try it with some nut bread and yellow sage cheese, young og. Alberisha sipped from her beaker and shuddered. Ooh, tastes lovely. Full of tiny bubbles, too. What is it? Simeon pushed a large confection towards her. It's called Fizzy Dandelion Cup. Very nice with snow cream pudding and damsons. Fill your plate. My nose told me today when we met that you were a healer, am I right? Alberisha looked surprised at the blind mouth's keen perception. Yes, you're right, Simeon. I am a healer. Simeon reached out and took hold of Bulltip's hefty paw. And you, sir, I don't think you are a healer somehow. I'm no healer, the stout hedgehog chuckled. Just a traveling companion, protecting Alberisha. The blind herbalist felt the strength of Bulltip's paw as he flexed it. I imagine you do very well. Woe betide the beast who stands in the way of this paw. Laughter and merry clatter rose to the rafters of the big room beneath the abbey. There was warmth there, good companionship and good humor. Dishes went this way and that, from paw to paw, snow cream, pudding, hot fruit pies, colorful trifles, tasty pastries, steaming in soup, new bread with shiny golden crusts, old cheeses studded with dandelion, acorn, and celery, sugared plums, and honeyed pears, vied for place with winter salads and vegetable flans. Alberisha and Bulltip joined in the merriment, enjoyed the food, and basked in the legendary hospitality of Redwall Abbey. It was late night. Sleepy little ones had been carried off to their dormitory beds, and fresh torches placed in the wall sconces. Bulltip nibbled on his fourth pastry, draining a tankard of October ale. He looked about the still chattering Redwallers, bantering with one another across the tables. Does no beast ever sleep in this place, Simeon? The herbalist shrugged. Are you tired, my friend? Bulltip blue and a bowl of hot soup. Not me, I'm wide awake now. The abbot watched the soup disappear. Good, that's the spirit. None of us had to rise early and work tomorrow. It's winter and there's not a lot to do, save, eat, and sleep. So we eat when we're hungry and sleep when we feel like it. How does that suit you, Abarisha? The housemaid sat back contentedly. It suits me fine, Abbot. What happens now when we're finished feasting? Formal looked up from his turnip and tater and beetroot pie. You me travelin' beasts. Mayhap you've gotten good stories to tell us in Missy. We heard all our tales 100 times o'er. Cushions and chairs were set in a half circle around the big fireplace. Fresh logs placed on the fire damped down with white snow-soaked herbs to give a sweet aroma to the air. Every Redwaller who did not want to sleep took a seat. Abarisha and Bulltip were installed in carved high-back chairs. The audience settled down, watching the two travelers eagerly. Today, as we walked through your beautiful abbey, we saw a tapestry, the mousemaid began. I immediately recognized the mouse picture there, Martin the warrior. As I understand it, he is the guiding spirit of this place and one of its founders. Do you know much about him? Abbot Saxtus sighed, shaking his head slow. Martin has always been here to guide us in times of trouble. His presence was felt when two of our young ones, Dandin and Mariel, were here. Unfortunately, they have been gone a season and a half now. Martin's presence has not been felt since. We know too little of our Abbey warrior. I dearly wish we knew more. A faint smile hovered about the face of Abarisha. She leaned forward and looked at the abbot and his Redwallers, sitting in the flickering firelight. Then you shall, for I have a long and great tale to relate to you. It is said that Badrang's dream was to be lord of all the eastern coast. A former corsair, he ceased plundering in high seas to carve out his own empire on land. He chose good territory, facing the eastern sea with hills to the north, cliffs to the south, marshes to the west, and wild forests beyond. Secure at the edges of the shoreline, the battle-hardened stoat could defend his position from any attack. There, he set about making his dream become reality, a fortress of timber and stone. Marshank. Badrang was chieftain of a horde, weasels, ferrets, foxes, and rats. He did not trust other stoats, considering his species to be the most cunning and resourceful of all creatures. Scuttling his crippled ship onto the northwest coast, Badrang had set out overland, striking for the far coast where corsairs and sea rats seldom sailed the gray-blue waters of the great eastern sea. As he traveled, the vicious stoat ravaged the land, killing those he could not conquer and enslaving those he could. It took 2 long seasons until he finally arrived triumphant at his destination. Laden with plunder, backed by his ruthless horde and driving a long chain of wretched slaves before him. Badrang set his slaves to work, forcing them to carve a rock quarry and commence building his fortress. The work went well, and soon a living quarters was erected, followed by a perimeter guard with its gates facing the shoreline. He scanned the open sea each day, for he had made enemies among his own kind when he was pirating. Fortunately, there was never a sign of sail or ship on the horizon. However, he bullied and drove both slave and horde beast to have the fortress fully built and established. Only then could he rule completely, burning and killing his way in all directions until he was absolute ruler of all he surveyed. Tyrant. Badrang loved the sound of the word tyrant. And so begins Book 1, The Prisoner and the Tyrant. He was only a young mouse, but of strong build, with a glint in his eye that proclaimed him a born fighter. A creature of few words, who never chattered needlessly. The early summer sun of Eastern Coast beat down pitilessly on his unprotected head as he carried and stacked chunks of rocks beside the masons, who had shaped it into blocks that would enlarge Fort Marche. A weasel captain named Hisk swaggered up, cracking his long whip threateningly, looking for an excuse to cut loose on the slaves who toiled in the dusty heat around him. His eye settled on the young mouse. My eye decides to have stuff in it.
You there, liven yourself up. Come on, stir your stumps. Lord Battering will be round for an inspection soon. Get moving or you'll taste my wet.
Whew. The mouse dropped the rock he was carrying and stood staring levelly at the bullying weasel. Hisk cracked the lash viciously, the tip flicking the air a fraction from his victim's face. The young mouse did not move, his eyes hooded over as he stood in silent defiance. The weasel captain drew the lash back to strike, but the bold, angry eyes of the young slave seemed to challenge him. Like all bullies, the weasel was a coward at heart. Averting his gaze from the piercing stare, Hisk snapped his whip in the direction of some more timid creatures.
Come on, you worthless idlers. No work, no food. Move your carcasses. Here comes Lord Batarang.
Flanked by his aides, Gurad, the rat, and Skalrag the fox, Batarang the tyrant strode imperilously onto the site. He waited while two hedgehogs hurriedly built him a makeshift seat from stone blocks. Skalrag quickly covered it with a velvet cloak. Batarang sat, gazing at the work going on around him. The stout lord addressed Hisks. Will my fortress be finished before summer is out? Hisk waved his coiled whip about the slaves.
Lord, if the weather was cooler and we had more creatures.
Batarang moved swiftly in his anger. Seizing a pebble, he hurled it, striking Hisk on the jaw. The weasel captain stood dumbly, blood trickling from his lip as the tyrant berated him.
Excuses. I don't want to hear complaints or excuses, do you hear me? What I need is a fortress built before autumn. Well, don't stand there sniveling, get on with it.
Immediately, Hisk got to work, flaying about with the whip as he passed on his master's bad mood.
Move, you useless lumps, you heard Lord Batarang. Marshank must be ready before the season's out. It'll be double work and half rations from now on. Move!
An old squirrel was staggering by, bent double under the burden of a large rock. Hisk lashed out at him. The whip curled around the aged creature's footpaws, tripping him as he dropped the rock. The weasel began laying into his victim, striking indiscriminately at the old one's frail body.
You worthless layabout. I'll strip the miserable hide off your...
The lash rose and fell as Hisk flogged away at the unprotected creature on the ground.
I'll teach you a lesson you won't forget.
Suddenly, the whip stopped mid-swing. It went taut as Hisk pulled on the handle. He tugged at it, but was yanked backwards. The young mouse had the end of the whip coiled around his paw. Hisk's eyes bulged with temper as he shouted at the intruder.
Let go my whip, mouse, or I'll gut yer.
The weasel reached out for the dagger at his waist, but he was not fast enough. The mouse hurled himself upon Hisk. Wrapping the whiplash around the captain's neck, he heaved hard. Hisk thrashed furiously about the dust, choking and slobbering as the lash tightened. Gurag blew a hasty alarm on a bone whistle he carried slung around his neck. In a trice, the mouse was set upon by the nearest 6 guards. He disappeared beneath a jumble of ferrets, weasels, and rats as they pounded him mercilessly, stamping upon his paws and breaking his hold on the whip. They continued relentlessly beating him with spear handles, rods and whips until Badrang intervened.
That's enough. Bring him to me.
His paws pinioned by whips and a spear handle, pulled hard across his throat, the young mouse was dragged, struggling and kicking, into the Stoat Lord's presence. Badrang drew his sword and pressed the point against the young one's heaving chest. Leaning forward, he hissed into the captive's face.
You know the penalty is death for attacking one of my horde. I could run you through with my sword right now and snuff out your life. What do you say to that, mouse?
The strong young mouse's eyes burned into the tyrant's face like twin flames as he gritted out.
Scum! That sword is not yours. It belongs to me as it belonged to my father.
Badrang withdrew the sword point. He sat back, shaking his head slowly in amazement at the boldness of the creature in front of him.
Well, you're not short of nerve, mouse. What's your name?
The answer was loud and fearless.
I am called Martin, son of Luke the warrior.
See the roving river run, over hill and dale, to a secret forest place, O my heart, noon vale. Look for me at dawning, when the sun's reborn, in the silent beauty, twixt the night and morn. Wait till the lark ascends and skies are blue. There where the rainbow ends, I will meet you. The mouse-maid Rose sat quite still at the last tremulous notes of her song hovered on the evening air. From a vantage point in the rocks south of Marshank, she looked out to sea. The water was tinted gold and scarlet from soft cloud layers reflecting the far westering sun at her back. Below on the shore, an ebbing tide gurgled and chuckled small secrets to itself as it lapped the pebbles.
Miss Roser, you'm come and get this your supper. Oi bane a cookin' victuals to lay about and get cold and soggy, bow or no.
Rose's companion, Grum, waved a heavy, digging paw at her, and the mouse-maid wandered over to join her mole friend at the low fire he had been cooking on. She sniffed appreciatively. Wild oat cakes and vegetable soup. Good old Grum, you could make a banquet from nothing. Grum smiled, his dark velvety face crinkling around two bright button eyes. He waved the tiny ladle which he always carried, thrust through his belt like a sword.
And you would charm me birds out in the trees with your sweet talkin', Mizzy. Setty down and eat oop.
Rose accepted the deep scallop shell full of fragrant soup, placing her oatcake on a flat rock across the fire to keep it warm. She shook her head as she sipped away. You're worse than an old mousewife, Grum. I wager you'd rock me to sleep if I let you. Grum wagged the small ladle at her.
You'm needin' all your sleep. Imagine what your old daddy say if and I brought you tired out and starved. Har.
The mousemaid took a hasty bite of oatcake, fanning her mouth. Whew, it's hot. There'll be no sleep for us until we've found out whether or not Brome is held captive in that dreadful fortress. Grum wiped his ladle clean with some sedge grass.
Mayhap old Brome just wandered off and got lost. Mayhap he bink captured in yon fortress.
Rose shook her head. You must misunderstand, Grum. The name Brome and the word trouble go together. He was always in trouble with father at home. That's why he went off wandering. You weren't there at the time, but they had a furious argument over Brome just taking off and roaming as he pleased. Father said it was no way for the son of chieftain to learn his responsibilities. But Brome wouldn't listen. He ran off alone. Well, we've tracked him this far, Grum, and I'm certain that my brother has run straight into trouble again. That's why I'm sure he's been taken by Badrang's scouts. I hope that he hasn't been forced to tell them where Noonvale is. The whole tribe of Ur Vo would be in danger if Brome gave away our location to that filthy tyrant. Grum refilled Rose's shell with vegetable soup. Don't you fret, missy. Old Brome can keep in his mouth shut tighter than a muscle at low tide. The mousemaid unwound the throwing sling from her waist. I hope you're right, Grum. I'd hate to think of the things those vermins would do to a young mouse to get information. The mole patted Rose's back gently with a heavy digging claw. Don't you worry, Roser. Us'll get old Maester Brome out yon pestle ifany and be in there. When they had finished eating, they extinguished the fire and broke camp. A stiff breeze had sprung up out of the east, bringing with it a light splatter of raindrops, which threatened to get heavier as night set in. Scrambling down the rocks, the two friends gained the shore, their paws making soft chinking noises as they trotted through the shingled tide line. Marshank stood grim and foreboding up ahead, a dark hump of misery in the moonless night. Chapter 2, I'm going to take some water. I hope you guys are enjoying so far. I'd like to mention how impossible it is to get the moles' voices. They're all typed out weird and strange. I'm trying my best. Alright, Chapter 2. The old squirrel Martin had saved peered through the cracks of the wooden slave compound at the lone figure tied between two posts on the wall top above the main gates. His son, a burly male named Feldo, stood behind the elder. He gritted his teeth savagely. The scurvy toads, they'll pay for this someday. Bark Jean, the old one, shook his head sadly. Martin will have a bad time tonight if the weather gets worse. Feldo thumped a sturdy paw against the wooden compound fence. It's the morning I'm more worried about. When the gannets and gulls and the other big hungry seabirds come searching for food and see him tied up there, they'll rip Martin to bits. A weasel guard called Rotnose banged his spear butt on the fence alongside Bark John's nose. Get away from there, you two, or you'll be next up there with the mouse. Double work for you tomorrow. Get some sleep while you can. Sweet dreams now. The flood tide returned, bringing with it a storm. The gale shrieked, driving heavy rain before it. On the wall top, Martin bowed his head against the battering elements. It was all that he could do, tied as he was by four paws between two thick wooden posts. Rain plastered the single frayed garment he wore close to his body, and the wetness ran down his back into his ears, across his eyes, and over his nose into his mouth, battering his bowed head and numbing his whole body, which shook and quivered in the ceaseless gale. He hung there like a rag doll in the wind. Martin's mind went back to the caves on the northwest shore where he had been born. Luke the warrior was his father. He had never known a mother. She had been killed in a sea rat raid when he was a tiny infant. Luke had raised him the best way he could, but Luke was a warrior and sworn to the destruction of sea rats and corsairs. He was unused to rearing babies. Martin was only 2 seasons out of infancy when his father and some other warriors captured a sea rat galley in a hard-pitched battle on the shoreline. Flushed with success and driven by the awful rage to take vengeance upon his wife's murderers, Luke the warrior gathered a crew and decided to sail off in his prized vessel to wage war on the sea rats. Martin remembered he was still very young, but fired with a determination to accompany his father. Luke, however, would not hear of it. He left Martin in the care of his wife's mother, Windred. The day he sailed, Martin sat stone-faced outside the cave. Luke could not reason with him. Son,
You would not last 2 moons out there on the high seas. I cannot risk your life pitting you in battle against the sea scum I am sworn to do war with. Listen to me. I would know what's best for you. But Martin would not listen.
I want to sail on the ship and be a warrior like you.
Luke spread his paws wide and sighed with frustration. What am I going to do with you, Martin? You have my warrior spirit and your mother's determination. Listen, son, take my sword. It was a fighting sword and well used. Luke pressed it into his son's paws. The young mouse gazed wide-eyed at the battle-scarred blade and gripped the handle tight, as if he would never let go. Luke smiled, recalling the time when his father had passed the sword on to him. Tapping a paw against the cross-hilt, Luke said, I can see it is in you to be a fighter, Martin. The first thing warriors must learn is discipline. Martin felt as though the sword were speaking for him. Tell me what to do, and I will obey. Relief surged through Luke as he commanded the would-be warrior. You will stay and defend our cave against all comers. Protect those weaker than yourself and honor our code. Always use the sword to stand for good and right. Never do a thing you would be ashamed of, but never let your heart rule your mind. He tapped the blade once more as its pitted edge glinted in the winter morning. And never ever let another creature take this sword from you. Not as long as you live. When the time comes, pass it on to another, maybe your own son. You will know instinctively if he is a warrior. If not, hide the sword where only a true warrior who is brave of heart would dare go to find it. Swear this to me, Martin. I swear it on my life. The young mouse's gray eyes reflected the wintry sea as he spoke. Coming back to reality, Martin lifted his head in the teeth of the gale. Was it a tear or just rain running from his eyes as he pictured the small figure standing upon the pebbled strand alone, waving the sword in a warrior's salute as his father's ship was lost in the horizon in an afternoon of snow and icy winter spoon? Martin's head slumped onto his sodden chest as he recalled the day of his capture. Timballisto was a budding warrior, several seasons Martin's senior. He had been left in charge of the tribe by Luke. The young mouse resented his older friend's authority, and often showed it by wandering far along the coast, away from the safe boundaries of the caves. It was on one such day that Martin took his father's sword, following the tide line north until the short winter afternoon began darkening. He was busy chopping away with a great blade at a driftwood log, reasoning that he could not be scolded for bringing back firewood to the cave fires. Windred saw him from afar. She had been following his paw tracks since early noon. They stood out clearly in the smooth, wet sand, marked with a straight furrow where the sword point trailed at Martin's side. She hurried forward, scolding her grandson. Martin, I have been out of my mind with worry. What have you been told about going off alone? Do you realize you're almost a league from the caves? Suddenly, Windred stopped berating him. She was staring beyond Martin to where a band of villainous-looking creatures were running along the shore towards them. The old mouse threw off her shawl. Martin, come to me. We must get away from here, quickly. The young mouse turned and saw the corsairs. Dropping the firewood, he took up the sword in both paws. Run, Grandma! Windred would not have run away, but she was rooted to the spot with fear. A stoat headed the band. They stopped within 2 paces of their victims. The stoat grinned wickedly. That's a big sword for a little mouse to be wielding. You'd better give that to me before you hurt yourself. The sword was heavy, and Martin's paws were tired, but he held it point forward, unwavering. Leave us alone! Stay back! My father told me never to let another creature take this sword from me. Now the corsairs began spreading out slowly.
encircling Martin and Windred, licking knives and spear blades as they chuckled evilly at the old mouse and the small would-be warrior. The stoat took a pace forward, his voice deceptively friendly. "A wise beast, your father. Did he ever tell you about those who could slay with a single spear thrust? Like this, or this?" As he spoke, the stoat brought up his spear and began jabbing expertly at Martin. The young mouse parried, fighting off the questing spear point amid the laughter of the cruel corsairs. At a nod from the stoat, a weasel ran forward from behind Martin. He dealt the young mouse a heavy blow with an oaken pike staff, laying him out flat on the sand. Badrang picked up the sword. Stepping over Martin's senseless body, he winked at Windred. She was held tight between two sea rats, tied and gagged by her own shawl, eyes wide with terror. The stoat stared along the sword blade at her. "Well, Grandma, he's a bold brat, that one of yours. Nice sword. It should serve me well. Hisk, we've wasted enough time. Chain these two up and get them back to the slave lines." Shackled to Windred, Martin was half dragged, half carried further north, along the wintry shore into the gathering night. It was in the short hours before dawn that Martin came awake, shivering and moaning as a fiery drum of relentless pain beat inside his skull. Whips cracked. He was pulled upright by other slaves as his chains began moving. Then came the long march. 2 seasons, trekking under the rods and whips of slave drivers, tied by the neck to a succession of wretched creatures, all captives together. He lost count of the days. They rolled interminably onto spring, summer, then autumn, with Windred long dead from hunger, thirst, and hardship under the lash. Martin recalled his grief for the old mouse wife, the closest he had ever come to knowing a mother. His stifled tears and the leaden weight of the sadness at her loss, the feeling of loneliness and desolation without her. She had deserved far better a fate than the one she suffered. His body began trembling at the thought of the vermin who had caused all of this cruelty. Badrang. The laughing, sneering, commanding stoat, swaggering along wearing the sword he had taken from Martin. A strength born of built-up rage coursed suddenly through the young mouse. He stood erect, tugging at his bonds, oblivious to the pounding storm, as a mighty roar welled up from deep inside him. "I am a warrior, Martin, son of Luke. I will live. I will not give in and die up here. Do you hear me, Badrang? I will live to take back my father's sword and slay you one day." Storm water filled his mouth. Rushing winds tore at his face. "Martin, son of Luke, can you hear me?" A voice called up to him from the shore outside the fortress. He could not see the speaker, but he heard the voice clearly above the gale. "Yes, I hear you. What is your name?" "There are 2 of us, my friend Grum Trencher the Mole and myself, Ladder Rose, daughter of the chieftain Urinvo. We heard you calling out. Tell me, is there a prisoner in there called Brome, a young mouse? He is my brother." Martin could feel the storm beating the senses from him. He rallied and shouted back, "I do not know of a mouse called Brome, and I don't think I'll have much chance to. I am sentenced to die up here, Ladder Rose." The answer came back in as kindly a tone as the mousemaid could shout under the circumstances. "Ladder Rose is my full title. Please call me Rose. My friend and I will do anything possible to help you, though we cannot climb up. The walls are too sheer and high. What can we do? Is there a message you wish to be carried to another creature?" Martin shook his head. "No message. I am alone. The guards told me that if I live through the night, the big seabirds will finish me off in the morning. Is there any way you can keep them off of me?" Rose thought for a moment before answering. Maybe, yes. We are not warriors, but we can use our slings. Also, I know a trick to drive the seabirds away. She waited, but there was no reply. Grum stepped away from the wall out onto the beach, shading his eyes from the downpour. As he gazed up at the limp figure slumped between the posts. You'm lost his senses, fallen unconscious, if you ask oi, poor creature. Rose joined Grum, and together they watched the unconscious form sway slackly as the elements assaulted it. The mousemaid chose a hard round pebble and fitted it to her sling. We must help him to live, we must! Her lip quivered as she spoke. Oh, that Badrang, that cruel, cowardly, heartless vermin! Grum chuckled softly. Nice words for a mousy maid, oi must say. Him'll live sure enough if he be arf as ill-tempered as he, missy. We'll do one more chapter. Dawn came pearly gray, shot with shafts of peach and dusty pink as the sun broke the eastern horizon in the wake of the night storm. The sea was dim, a shade of oily turquoise with cream-crested waves in the middle distance. Badrang the Tyrant has his carved throne chair brought out onto the courtyard, where he could watch the fun. Garad the Rat and Scowrag the Fox stood along with two weasels called Lumpback and Stiffier, awaiting orders as the tyrant Stoat pointed at Martin's limp figure with his sword. You look strong enough to have survived through a bit of wind and rain, Garad. Go and wake the sleeping beauty. When he's conscious and wriggling about, the birds will soon spot him. Garad snickered as he looked up at the circling seabirds that were beginning to mass above the fortress. Aye, Lord. That lot looking good appetite as usual, eh? Badrang nodded. Never knew a gannet that wasn't. Oh, there, Hisk! Don't send the slaves to the quarry yet. Parade 'em out here and they can see what the sentence being carried out. I'll show 'em what happens to any beast who puts a paw wrong in my fortress. Garad slapped Martin around the face with a wet piece of rag until the young mouse revived. He held a beaker of fresh water to the captive's lips, chuckling as the prisoner drank greedily. That's the stuff. Drink up now, mouse. Those seabirds will soon be down for breakfast. Look at 'em. Big uns, ain't they? Great pointed beaks they've got. Good as a knife for ripping and tearing. They'll enjoy you. Martin managed to spit the last of the water full into Garad's face. The rat backed off, sputtering nastily. Tough, eh? Well, I hope they takes your eyes first. Chancing a glance upward, Martin could see a great gannet preparing to dive. Two other gray gulls were beginning to swoop low, and the others rushed to join them in the descent for food. His paws were swollen by the wet ropes that held him tightly. He struggled wildly, shutting his eyes after Garad's cruel remark. All eyes were on Martin now. The horrified slaves, the gloating horde of Badrang, the hungry seabirds, plus two other pairs. Rose and Grum were crouched behind a stony outcrop on the beach, the young mousemaid watching very carefully as she placed a paw across her throat and took a deep breath. The birds wheeled and dived lower towards the struggling figure bound between the posts on the wall top. Grum nudged his friend urgently. How do us and an hurry, Mizzy? They birds be a-gotten to peck Martin to death. Or I can't look no more. Grum closed his eyes tight as the seabirds dived for the kill. Badrang had forgotten to scan the seaward horizon that day, preoccupied as he was with Martin's death sentence. A sail appeared 2 points north on the eastern horizon. It was a great, green, single-masted craft, practically invisible against the sea because of its camouflaged colorings. 3 banks of oars protruded to port and starboard, one atop the other, giving it the appearance of a monstrous insect crawling over the waves. It was Badrang's old partner in murder and treachery upon the high seas, a stoat like himself. Captain Tram Clog of the great ship Sea Scarab. Clog was a villainous sight, an enormously fat stoat dressed in stained and tawdry silks, wearing a massive pair of carved wooden clogs. Every part of his fur, wherever possible, was plaited and braided. Beard, eyebrows, mustache, all over his gargantuan body. Plaits and braids stuck out of his ragged sleeve frills, spilled through rents in his skirt, coat, and pantaloons, even curled over the tops of the oversized clogs. He gnawed on a half-dead lobster as he slurped seaweed grog from a flagon, belching aloud and spitting shell fragments everywhere. Throwing back his tousled head, he roared up at the lookout, a ferret in the crow's nest. "Boggs! Any shape of land out there yet, matey?" The keen-eyed Boggs peered into the distance. "Nah, Captain, nary a glimmer o'. Wait! Aye! Land ahoy!" The lobster tail fell from Tram Clog's open mouth, to disappear down his open shirt front. "Ahar! I knowed it! Where away, Boggsy, old bilge dog. Jeez, I can't read. 2 points south, Captain, eh? There be a little lump a sticking up, either a cliff or some building." Clog gurgled happily. Drawing a broad cutlass from his sash, he began honing in on the sole of his left clog. "Bring her about 2 points, Grouch. If Badrang ain't there, I'll eat me clogs on me oath, I will. Gritter tell the crew to put some vinegar into the oar-stokes. Hurry now, matey. With this wind in our sails and a flowing sea, we'll make landfall soon. Won't me all messmate Badrang be pleased to see his great Uncle Clog after all this time." At the wheel, Grouch gave a villainous cackle. "Pleased, yer say? Cap'n, I reckon Badrang will pop his cork." Clog flung the empty grog bottle over the side. "And if he don't, I'll pop it for him." Like a great green bird of ill omen, the sea scarab came about and headed for Marshank as Trum Clog mused about him aloud to himself. "If an eye knows Badrang, he'll have slaves aplenty too. Too many for one beast to own. And old me like him won't begrudge enough fine slaves to throw the sea scarab. Gill's teeth, I should say, not. A poor lubber like me without a single slave to me vessel. Besides, 'tain't fittin' for corsairs and sea rats to row their own craft. So I'll just nip in nicely and ask him, and some like, to fit out with row beasts. Badrang will give 'em to me. He's a nice cove. And what if he don't? Why, I'll just slit his gizzard and take 'em. I'll use his skull as me figurehead and feed the rest of him to the fishes. Only fair, ain't it, Couch?" Both pirates burst out laughing at the joke. Clog liked to joke, but he was joking in deadly earnest this time. He hated Badrang. The seabirds came diving in voraciously at Martin's unprotected body. They were within a hair's breadth of his head when a wild, ear-splitting screech, halfway between a whistle and a cry, rent the morning air. Immediately, the scavenging birds swooped away and zoomed high into the air, shrilling anxiously and wheeling about willy-nilly. Another loud screech followed, and the gulls and gannets milled about high above Martin, some of them bumping into each other in apparent confusion. Badrang gaped upwards in amazement. "What's the matter with them? Why aren't they tearing them apart?" A further screech followed, even louder and more angry sounding than the former two. This time, the seabirds sheered off sharply and dispersed. The tyrant stoat was furious. "What in the name of Hellgates is going on?" A ferret called Bluehide, who had lived in the far north, called out as he scratched his ears in puzzlement. "That's the hunting cry of a great eagle. I've heard it afore." Garad shoved him scornfully.
Darn, there ain't great eagles on this coast.
A small, venturesome kittiwake, who had just arrived on the scene, took a swift dive at Martin. The screech rang out, swift and harsh. The frightened kittiwake took off like a skyrocket. Bluehide shrugged, eyeing Gurad in a patronizing manner.
That's a great eagle's hunting cry. I'd stake me oath on it.
The rat raised his spear butt threateningly.
Listen, Addlebrain. I've said there ain't no... Gurad, stow that gab and get over here.
The rat broke off his argument with the ferret and scuttled across to Badrang's side. The tyrant scowled as he glowered at the clear blue sky.
Never mind what it is. There's something about it scaring the seabirds witless. We'll have to tempt them down onto the mouse with bait they can't resist. Bring a dead fish from the cookhouse.
Hurriedly, the fish was brought to Badrang. He took his sword and cut the cord holding up the weasel Lumpback's ragged kilt. There was a snigger from the slaves as Lumpback stood grinning sheepishly with his only garment draped around his footpaws on the ground. Ignoring the weasel's plight, Badrang tossed the cord to Gurad.
Here, tie the fish to this and hang it around the mouse's neck. That'll bring the hungry seabirds into feed, eagle or no eagle.
From their hiding place on the shore, Rose scanned the sky. It was clear and free of birds. Thank goodness. I won't have to do the eagle call again, Grum. It was beginning to strain my throat.
Her, the mole chuckled. Well, you'd be glad too, Mizzy. To her very frightened sound, Oi bidden looking one little bit. Her, no.
Grum peeked over the rocky outcrop at Martin on the wall top.
Miss Roser, Erkin, what be they villains a doing to Marthin?
The mousemaid began twirling her loaded sling. I don't know, but whatever it is, we'll have to stop them. Gurad was trying to get the cord noose that held the fish over Martin's head, but the young mouse was ducking and struggling wildly. The rat was losing his temper.
Hold still, mouse, or I'll pin this fish to you with me spear point. Look.
Gurad dropped the fish with an agonizing yelp as the sling stone bounced off his paw. Badrang did not see the stone. All he saw was Gurad dropping the fish, and hopping about, sucking on his paw. The tyrant stood up, knocking his throne chair backwards as he yelled at the unfortunate rat.
Stop playing the fool and get that fish around his neck before I come up there and batter some sense into you with it.
As Gurad bent to pick the fish up, Grum fitted a sizable rock into the spoon of his ladle and whipped it off in the direction of the rat's bent bottom.
Thwomp.
It struck hard and true, knocking Gurad from the wall top. He plummeted over and landed with a sickening thud into the courtyard below. Badrang leapt toward him, sword in paw, waving at the creatures around him.
To the wall top, quick! Some beasts hurling rocks.
They piled up the broad wooden ladders onto the wall top. Rotnose and Hisk were up first. They were immediately hit by flying stones. Hisk fell senseless. Rotnose crouched, massaging an aching breastbone. Badrang ducked another salvo as he went into a half-stoop, shouting at the others.
Where are the stones coming from? Can you see?
Scalrag stood upright, peering at the seemingly deserted shore.
Must be some beast hiding out there, Lord.
Below, at the corner of the courtyard where the slaves were grouped, the big squirrel Feldo decided to take part in the action. He ducked to the back of the crowd, picking up several large pebbles as he went. With energy born of anger, he chucked a large, rough stone at the back of Scalrag's head. Many times Feldo has bent under Scalrag's rod. Now is the chance to repay the sadistic fox. The flying rock did not strike Scalrag's skull. It narrowly missed, but it took half of his left ear in the process, ripping it off as it whizzed by. Feldo immediately flung 2 more stones, then, keeping his paws at his sides, gazed around in amazement, as if some other creature was doing the throwing. As Scalrag screeched in pain, Stiffer sprang up, pointing down the courtyard, as he shouted excitedly. The stones are coming from inside our own fortress! Thwack! A stone from the shoreside struck him square in the back. Rotnose, still rubbing his chest, sneered at Stiff Ear. Rubbish! They're coming from the shore, I tell yer! I was hit myself! Youch! A stone from the courtyard stung his tail. Confusion reigned from the wall top. Badrag and his creatures did not know which side the missiles were coming from. The tyrant lay flat and raised his head slightly. He could not see the shore clearly, but he had an uninterrupted view of the sea. His stomach churned suddenly, and he began to curse at the sight his sharp eyes rested on. One more quick look to ascertain that he was not wrong sent Badrang scrambling for the ladder, calling hoarsely as he went, Cut that mouse down from there and bring him with you! Get down into the fortress, quick! But sire, we think that some beast behind those rocks slinging stones. Badrang shot a venomous glance at Rotnose as he hissed, Do as I say, scumbrain. We've more to worry about than a few stones. Trowming clogs out there with the sea scarabs sailing on a direct course for us. Grum was running out of good rocks to fit his ladle when Rose pointed to the wall. Look, they've had enough. They're cutting Martin loose and retreating into the fortress. Thank the seasons that we were able to help the poor mouse, eh, Grum? The mole mopped his brow and sat with his back against the rocks. The mole mopped his brow and sat with his back against the rocks of their hideout on the beach in the hot mid-morning sunlight. Your boy Okaya's serpently gave their vermin something to think about. Why give 'em bilio with my ol' later? Or her? Rose could not help grinning at the faithful companion. So you did, Grum. That ladle comes in useful for other things than stirring soup with. But Grum was not listening. Facing seaward, he was pointing straight out at the sea scarab, which was drawing closer by the moment. Look at Mizzy, sea ratters and vermin's oi be bounden. A chill of fear ran through the mousemaid. Corsairs. They had seldom visited this coast, but the tales of horror and death that surrounded the raiders from the sea were legendary. Hastily, they gathered their few belongings. Let's not hang about here, Grum. Come on, we'll lie low in the marshes behind the fortress. Captain Tremenclog was in high villainous humor. He cut an awkward jig, his clogs clattering noisily onto the poop deck. I recognize that flag flying o'er yon pass ashore. Oh, lucky day, I knowed it. I could feel it in my clogs. There's me messmate of bygone seasons, Badrang, built himself a stone castle pretty as you please. How many poor little slaves would you say it took to work on a place like that, Crosstooth? A wicked-looking fox draped in purple bandanas scratched his chin. I'd say lots, Cap'n. Lots and crowds? Aye, lots and crowds. Which is most, Crosstooth, lots or crowds? Why, bless your heart, Cap'n. Crowds. That means lots and lots. Ah ha ha, well said, matey. Break out the weapons while I lays plans for a reunion party with me old messmate Badrang. Martin stood swaying on swollen footpaws, his arms still bound. Badrang sat upon his throne chair, eyes narrowed as he watched the reprieved prisoner. Like I said before, you're not short of nerve, Martin. Hearken to me now, I could use a creature like you. From beneath hooded eyelids, Martin watched the tyrant as he spoke, the young mouse's gorge beginning to rise at the stoat's proposal. How would you like to be a captain in my horde? The best of food, slaves to command as you please. I'll even give you a spear to carry if you swear loyalty to me as your master. Well, what have you got to say to that, young'un? Martin made no reply. His paws were deadened by the tight bonds, but his rage was aroused and his jaws were strong. He launched himself in a flash upon Badrang, settling his teeth into the stoat's outstretched paw and biting it savagely to the bone. Yes, Luke, I will hydrate. Thank you, Luke. The tyrant roared and bellowed in agony as Martin was set upon by guards, his jaw prized apart with a dagger, and rods and spear butt beat furiously against him. The young mouse went down on the ground as Badrang sprinkled blood about, shaking his paw in anguish as he gritted from between clenched teeth.
You'll wish the gannet had gotten you by the time I'm finished with you, whelp. Oh, don't worry, you'll die, but not fast. Fraction by fraction until you scream to welcome death. Take him away and lock him up. I'll see him after I'm rid of Clog.
Inside the courtyard, slightly to the left of the main gate, was a prison pit, dug deep into the ground with a heavy grating on top. The cover creaked as it was slid onto one side. Martin was hurled in, still with both paws bound to his sides. He fell through the darkness and landed with a cushioned thump on something soft. There was a grunt, and some beast was helping him upright, while another untied his bonds. A gruff voice spoke. Martin, well, at least you're still alive. I'm Feldo the squirrel. The young mouse grabbed his paws. Grimacing at the blood began circulating properly. The squirrel rubbed and patted him until he felt able to move easily again. Martin recognized him. He knew Feldo as a kindred spirit, another born rebel who had fallen foul in the vermin regime's justice. Feldo, what are you doing down here? Awaiting the tyrant's pleasure, like you, Martin. That rotten toad stiff ear saw me flinging rocks at him while he was on the wall top. Still, you saved my old dad and I did what I could for you, matey. Martin grasped the big squirrel's paw in the darkness. You were a true friend, Feldo. Thank you. They both sat on the hard-packed earth floor. There was a movement to Martin's right, and as he tensed, a small, quiet voice echoed hollowly in the pit. What do you suppose Badrang's going to do with us? Martin peered into the dimness. Who's there? Feldo reached out and brought their paws together. Martin, this young feller was here before I arrived. Meet Brome. So, Brome, said Martin. He was younger and smaller than Martin and Feldo, and his voice sounded tiny and frightened. I never did harm to any beast. I was lost and blundering along the shore one night when the sentries on the wall saw me, and I was captured and thrown down here. Did they capture you, Martin? Will they keep us down here forever? Patting his paw and ruffling his ears good-naturedly, Martin reassured the youngster. You stick with us, Brome. We'll get you out of here. While I was staked out on the wall top, Feldo was throwing rocks from inside, and your sister Rose chucked them from the outside. She's out there with a mole named Grum. I owe them my life. Brome grasped at Martin's paw. Rose and Grum! Good old Grum. I knew they'd find me. With those two out there and you and Feldo in here, we'll escape easily. It'll be as simple as picking daisies. The joy and relief in the young one's voice was so evident that Martin felt a wave of sympathy for him. Nudging Feldo in the darkness, Martin spoke with a confidence he did not feel. Aye, simple as picking daisies, eh, Feldo? The squirrel was a kindly beast. He threw his paws about both of them, playing along with Martin's bravado. Right, lads. 3 warriors like us and extra help from the outside? Ha! The only thing Badrang will eat for dinner will be our dust when we scoot out of there. Friends together! Shortly after that, Brome fell asleep, cushioned between Martin and Feldo. Their eyes now accustomed to the gloom, they sat staring at each other. Easy as picking daisies. When was the last time you picked daisies, matey? A long time ago, friend Feldo. Some of them were pretty tough to pick as I remember, but not impossible. Aye, with a little outside help we might stand a chance. Martin yawned and settled down beside Brome. Sleep first. Being tied out on a wall top in a storm isn't the most restful place around here. We'll think of something later, friend. We can't disappoint this young'un. Feldo sat, listening to the soft snores of his companions. Oh yes, let's think of something later, he chuckled lightly to himself. How to sprout wings and defeat Badrang and his horde with outside help from a mole and a mouse maid. By my brush, why didn't I think of those two good ideas before? Alright. So that was the end of chapter 3. So I will be ending it there tonight. I hope you all enjoyed the book, and I will hopefully be able to read it again sometime soon for you guys. I am hoping to stream either Sunday or Monday. I will probably be playing some DLC of Escape Academy. I hope everyone has a very good evening. Thank you so much for joining me. Stay hydrated, stay warm, stay safe. Surround yourself with people who love you. And I hope to see you again very, very soon.